We begin here in Japan, where the governors of 4 prefectures have asked the central government to end the coronavirus state of emergency a week earlier than originally planned. They asked that it be lifted by the end of February. The governors of Osaka, Hyogo, and Kyoto held a video conference Tuesday with the minister in charge of the coronavirus response. Their request was based on an overall improvement in the situation, including fewer new daily cases. Osaka's governor says some restrictions will continue after the decree ends.
We'll continue asking restaurants and bars to shorten hours. Then we will ask the central government for financial support, as we can't afford it on our own anymore.
Yoshimura said he asked the central government to continue providing up to about $380 in daily support for businesses that agree to shorter hours even after the emergency declaration is lifted. The governor of the central prefecture of Aichi also made a request to lift the state of emergency by the end of the month. But officials of neighboring Gifu prefecture remain cautious about lifting the declaration due to a cluster involving over 200 cases. The central government plans to discuss the requests on Wednesday.
As for these areas, we would like to make decisions on the correct timing after examining and analyzing infection figures and hearing from experts.
And in the capital area, the governors of Tokyo and 3 neighboring prefectures agreed the rate of decline in the number of cases has not been fast enough to lift the state of emergency.
To get out of the current situation, each individual's cooperation is needed. We need to show our strong will to end the emergency on March 7th.
The Tokyo metropolitan government confirmed 275 new cases on Tuesday. Officials say the healthcare system in Tokyo remains under severe strain. Wednesday will mark 6 months until the opening of the Tokyo Paralympic Games, which have been postponed due to the pandemic. An NHK survey shows more than 60% of the governing bodies of Paralympic sports here in Japan feel uneasy about holding the Games. Concern that crowds may increase the risk of the outbreak has been expressed. Some say they're not sure if winning medals can really give people much to get excited about, and there even may be negative reactions to the para-athletes. The pandemic is also having a significant impact on the preparations of athletes. 88% of respondents cited lost opportunities to perform in competitions. 60% said athletes are having difficulty following through with their training programs. Athletes face difficulty training enough due to the pandemic. This arena on Tokyo's waterfront was supposed to be a training site for para-athletes, but the site is being used as a self-isolation facility for coronavirus patients with mild symptoms. Fuji Yuriko is one of the athletes who gave up plans to travel to Tokyo for a training camp. She is set to play on the national boccia team at the Tokyo Games. She has cerebral palsy and a risk of developing serious symptoms if she contracts the virus. To ease difficulties, the Japan Boccia Association has been preparing several training venues across the country.
The new facility will allow us to concentrate on our workouts with peace of mind.
Governing bodies are facing challenges on how to arrange training opportunities and actual competitions to strengthen the skills of athletes. Now, the organizers of the Tokyo Olympics are considering a cap on spectator numbers to help keep the pandemic at bay. Still, construction of seating areas at 43 venues has carried on, regardless of the fact they could soon need a redesign. The Olympics kick off on July 23rd, 1 month ahead of the Paralympics. At a venue for events including sport climbing, a stand with a capacity for 8,000 spectators is being rebuilt. It was almost complete in March last year, but following the postponement of the Games, officials decided to dismantle it to prevent decay. Construction work is also underway at a canoe slalom facility and a triathlon venue. The Tokyo Organizing Committee says the postponement has run up an additional spend of about $2.8 billion. Of that, nearly $700 million has been earmarked for rebuilding stands and other temporary facilities. The committee is set to decide on spectator numbers by spring. Japan's Emperor Naruhito has met guests at a ceremony in the Imperial Palace in Tokyo to mark his 61st birthday on Tuesday. Emperor Naruhito and Empress Masako entered the palace by car. They acknowledged the crowds of people who had gathered to celebrate his birthday. The emperor received celebratory messages from guests, including Prime Minister Suga Yoshihide and a representative of foreign ambassadors in the Matsunoma stateroom. Emperor Naruhito expressed his deep appreciation to the guests and said he wants them to take good care of themselves and continue their duties. Now, this year's birthday events were scaled down in an effort to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. Emperor Naruhito's greetings to the public on the Imperial Palace grounds were cancelled, and there was no banquet to mark his birthday. The administration of U.S. President Joe Biden says it's imposed sanctions on 2 more senior military officials in Myanmar over the coup earlier this month. In the largest city of Yangon, anti-coup protesters took to the streets again on Tuesday. That's one day after the biggest acts of civil disobedience were seen in Myanmar since the army grabbed power on February 1st. In the past 3 weeks, the military has failed to stop the daily protests, which have left 4 people dead. On Monday, the U.S. Treasury Department said in a statement it imposed the new sanctions targeting 2 members of the State Administration Council, which was formed by Myanmar's military. The 2 individuals have had their assets in the United States frozen. They're also prohibited from doing business with American citizens. The Treasury said Myanmar's military must reverse its actions and urgently restore the democratically elected government. This is the second time the Biden administration has imposed sanctions over the military takeover. The U.S. has already designated 10 individuals and 3 military-linked companies as targets of sanctions. Meanwhile, on Tuesday, foreign ministers of the Group of 7 industrialized nations condemned the clampdown as intimidation and oppression of those opposing the coup. It called for the immediate and unconditional release of those detained arbitrarily, including State Councilor Aung San Suu Kyi. Coronavirus vaccinations have begun in the Gaza Strip amid concerns the number of doses secured may not be sufficient to stop the spread of the virus. Healthcare workers in Gaza started receiving shots on Monday after Israel allowed the first batch of the Russian-made vaccine to be shipped to the area. Gaza is controlled by the militant group Hamas and has a population of 2 million. But it's only secured 22,000 doses so far. More than 50,000 infections have been confirmed in Gaza, where the medical care system faces many challenges. Now, in the West Bank, inoculation of healthcare professionals began earlier this month. But the area has seen limited shipments of doses from sources such as the British pharmaceutical firm AstraZeneca and the COVAX facility, which is an international framework to ensure fair access to vaccines. The United Nations has been calling on Israel to support vaccinations for Palestinians. The inoculation drive in Israel has been one of the fastest in the world. Israel agreed with the Palestinian Authority on Friday to vaccinate 100,000 Palestinians who work in Israel. But it remains unclear when a sufficient number of Palestinians will be vaccinated.
In Myanmar, a funeral for a protester shot by security forces on Saturday was held in Mandalay. The protester was one of 2 killed during demonstrations against the military government. In Georgia, the leader of the country's main opposition party, Nika Melia, is arrested as parliament names a new prime minister. Guinea begins vaccinating people against Ebola as it seeks to contain a new outbreak that so far has killed at least 5 people. And the U.S. space agency NASA releases new video of its rover Perseverance landing on Mars.
Senate investigations are taking place into last month's deadly riots at the Capitol building by Donald Trump supporters. There has been conflicting testimony, as one officer said he'd requested the National Guard and another that the intelligence had not warranted the request. One of 3 men accused of murdering the Maltese journalist Daphne Caruana Galizia has been sentenced to 15 years in jail. Vincent Muscat admitted involvement in the car bombing that killed the anti-corruption campaigner in 2017. And the French actor Gérard Depardieu has been placed under formal investigation on charges of rape and sexual violence in December last year. Mr. Depardieu's lawyer says the actor completely rejects the accusations.